This defendant walked among us, play acting as a normal suburban dad, when in reality, all along, he was obsessively targeting innocent women for death. He thought that by killing them, he could silence them forever and get away with murder. But he was wrong.
Rex Heuermann, the Gilgo Beach serial killer, pleading guilty yesterday, admitting he killed 8 women. Heuermann confessing to strangling and dismembering his victims over a decades-long timeline, with DNA, some from a discarded pizza crust, phone records, and photographs, all linking him to the crimes. He is expected to be sentenced to life in prison without parole, bringing closure finally to a case that has haunted Long Island and his victims' families for decades.
Rex Heuermann did not care about their hopes and dreams, or that they had families and friends who loved them. He appeared to care only for himself and executing what he thought was his perfect blueprint for murder.
That is attorney Gloria Allred. You just heard from her. She is representing a number of the victims' families, and she joins us now in studio. Great to have you here, Gloria.
Thank you for inviting me, Bill.
So let's first talk about what your goal is representing the victims' families. Is this closure, retribution? Is there more to this story that we need to know?
Well, I don't use either closure or retribution, because when a loved one has been murdered, I'm not sure that there may never be closure. I don't know. And in terms of retribution, that's not what it's all about. I'm an attorney for the families, a private attorney. And for me, practicing law for 50 years, it's all about justice. And that is what they're seeking. And so many of them, I might add, have been urging for decades that their murdered loved ones not be lost, not be ignored, not be, and that there attention must be paid to them in order to win justice. And because they kept speaking out, they were very, very, very much carrying the voice of their loved one. And that's how they helped to win justice. And yesterday, the district attorney gave credit to the families for constantly speaking out. I gave them an enormous amount of credit. And I might add, their courage working through this pain has been so admirable. And to sit there in court, as I did with my clients yesterday, and hear Mr. Heuermann, the defendant, I prefer to call him, admit to the crimes against their loved ones was something. I mean, some of them were crying. That day has finally come. And we know that that plea to the murders of 8 women, one of whom he was never even charged with, but he did admit to it. It was painful because he talked about the manner of death. The defendant had to say how they died, and he said strangled them.
And the family reliving that. This is the reaction, members of the family speaking after the plea yesterday. Take a listen.
On behalf of Megan, we definitely accept the plea.
I am glad that this is over as far as him pleading guilty.
On behalf of my mother, I accept this plea.
I'm thankful that we came to a conclusion that brought peace to everybody.
Gloria, from an attorney standpoint and from someone that knows the family now, a guilty plea better than a trial?
Absolutely. I informed each of them of the district attorney's decision to accept a plea. And by the way, there was little or no benefit to the defendant in offering a plea. Of course, the defendant is reported to have said that he accepted the plea to spare the family members of the victims from having to go through a trial. That is absurd. He doesn't care, Bill, about anybody but himself. If he really cared about the family members, he would never have tortured and murdered these young women. And by the way, you know, they have been called sex workers, but that's what they did, but it wasn't who they were. And a lot of these were single mothers. They had some of them may have had deadbeat dads who weren't paying child support. and they couldn't get decent jobs. They didn't have the money to go to college. They didn't really have any alternative. They did what they needed to do in order to get money to support their children. So let's not condemn them. And, you know, there's much more to them. They were somebody's sister. They were somebody's mother. I was with one of my clients, a lot of them, but one of them was 3 years old when her mother was murdered. Another one had just been born, was an infant.
Yeah.
So this is just a terrible, terrible crime.
I want to just play a moment from Rex Heuermann's appearance in court from yesterday. Should you hear this?
They're obvious and simple questions, but I have to ask them, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
How old are you?
62.
You read and write English?
Yes.
Have you discussed this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
Have you had enough time to discuss this case with your attorney?
Yes, I have.
After discussions with your lawyer, you feel it's in your best interest to plead guilty rather than go to trial.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you satisfied with the manner in which your attorney's represented you in this case?
Yes, I am.
Gloria, as we wrap this up, just you saw that you were in the courtroom near him.
Yeah.
What was the energy like in the courtroom? What was his demeanor like? How did that whole interaction feel?
Well, many of my clients, the family members who were there representing their murdered loved ones, felt that he was sneering.
Wow.
And that, a number of them felt that, and they felt that was just so inappropriate. But he is so disgusting. What he did is just, it's beyond words.
Yeah.
Because even before the death of some of them, he took the tattoos on them and he removed them while they probably were still alive.
Oh my God.
He is the most horrible thing. To torture these young women is just unforgivable.
It's unthinkable, but Gloria, I want to thank you for what you've done for the victims, on behalf of the victims and their families, and what you continue to do.
Thank you very much, and I'll be back for the sentencing on June 17th.
Okay, we'll have you back. Gloria Allred, thank you very much.
Thank you.